It was a moment that stunned the nation. News anchors fell silent, and living rooms across America filled with a heavy, collective breath. The story unfolding was unlike any before. Elon Musk, the visionary behind rockets and electric cars, sat in a studio, not as a titan but as a man deeply troubled. The weight of the moment pressed visibly on his shoulders, his usual confidence replaced by a rare vulnerability. He wasn't discussing business or technology. There were no charts, no talk of Mars, no mention of electric vehicles or innovation. He was speaking about the US border sealed for weeks. The once busy crossings now stood eerily silent, a symbol of division and uncertainty. His voice broke and a tear fell. The camera lingered, capturing a moment of raw, unguarded emotion rarely seen from public figures of his stature. The stoic innovator was gone. In his place was someone mourning a fading dream. The hope that once defined his journey seemed to flicker, replaced by sorrow and doubt. Musk, himself an immigrant, had built his life on America's promise of opportunity. He arrived with little more than ambition and a belief in the American dream, a dream that now felt fragile. His emotion was a wake-up call. If the embodiment of the American dream is grieving, what does that say about us? The nation watched, confronted by the reality that even its brightest minds could feel despair. His tears weren't for himself, but for millions suddenly thrown into chaos, for the principles of openness and opportunity he believed defined America. He mourned for families torn apart, for dreams deferred, for a country at a crossroads. The interview went viral, not for words but for raw, unfiltered sorrow. Social media exploded with reactions as people shared the clip, moved by the authenticity of his pain. Even critics paused, seeing a symbol of collective grief. For a brief moment, political lines blurred, replaced by a shared sense of loss and reflection. Musk's tears echoed the pain of families separated, businesses disrupted, and a nation questioning its identity. The ripple effect was felt in every corner of society, from shuttered storefronts to empty classrooms. It wasn't about policy, it was about the soul of a country. The question lingered: what kind of nation do we want to be when faced with hardship? Musk reframed the border closure as a human tragedy, not a political win. He spoke of compassion, of unity, and of the need to remember our shared humanity. He reminded us that behind every decision are real people with real dreams. Every policy has a face, a family, a future hanging in the balance. His vulnerability was a call to empathy, urging us to consider the true cost of building walls. It was a plea to look beyond fear and find strength in compassion. In that moment, Musk's tears became a powerful plea for compassion and unity. His sorrow was not just his own, it was a mirror, reflecting the pain and hope of an entire nation searching for its soul. The border closure was announced in an emergency broadcast, halting all non-essential travel and severely restricting commerce. The message, delivered with grave urgency, echoed through living rooms across the nation, signaling a moment that would change countless lives overnight. The message was clear: America was closing its doors. For the first time in generations, the border was no longer a gateway but a barrier. In border towns, the usual bustle vanished overnight, replaced by an eerie silence. Streets that once thrived with life and commerce now stood deserted, their emptiness a stark reminder of the sudden change. Thousands were stranded, vacationers, families, truck drivers with perishable goods. Many waited for hours, hoping for answers or a chance to cross, but the uncertainty only grew. The policy meant to bring order, instead unleashed confusion and panic. People gathered in crowds, desperate for information, their faces etched with worry and disbelief. Phone lines jammed as people scrambled for answers. Families tried to reach loved ones, businesses called for guidance, and officials struggled to keep up with the flood of questions. The border, once a symbol of connection, became an impassable wall. Guards patrolled empty crossings, and the familiar flow of people and goods came to a sudden halt. Communities built on cross-border ties felt betrayed and severed. Lifelong neighbors found themselves on opposite sides, unable to reach each other, their shared routines abruptly broken. Families accustomed to easy visits were now separated indefinitely. Grandparents, parents, and children could only wave across fences, uncertain when they would reunite. Small businesses lost customers and revenue in an instant. Shops that depended on cross-border shoppers faced empty aisles and mounting bills. The closure was more than a logistical challenge, it was an emotional and economic blow. The sense of loss was palpable, touching every home and storefront. The vibrant exchange of culture and commerce was choked off. Markets once filled with laughter and conversation now echoed with silence. Fear and uncertainty filled the vacuum. Each news update brought more questions than answers, and anxiety spread through communities like wildfire. The silence at the border masked a rising tide of anxiety. Beneath the stillness, people wondered how long this isolation would last, and what the future might hold. America, long a beacon of freedom, now faced the reality of becoming a fortress, and many questioned the true cost. The nation held its breath, uncertain of what would come next, as the world watched and waited. Beyond politics and numbers, the border closure is about people, real lives, real families, and real heartbreak. Every policy has a human face, and here, the consequences ripple through communities on both sides of the line. Maria, a dedicated nurse in Arizona, can no longer cross to care for her elderly mother in Mexico. Her weekend visits, once a lifeline for her family, are now impossible, leaving her mother isolated and Maria racked with worry. David, living in Detroit, and his fiancée Chloe, in Windsor, were just weeks away from their wedding day. Now, their future is uncertain, their plans on hold, separated by a border that once felt invisible, a line that now feels like a wall. Students like Carlos, who work tirelessly to earn scholarships to U.S. universities, are turned away at the gate. Their dreams of education and a better life are put on hold with no clear end in sight. Seasonal farm workers, essential to the region's agriculture, are barred from entry. Fields go unharvested, crops rot in the sun, and farmers face mounting losses, desperate for the hands that once sustained their livelihoods. These aren't isolated stories, they're the daily reality for thousands of families, each one facing their own private struggle, their own heartbreak. The human cost is measured in missed milestones, birthdays, graduations, weddings, sleepless nights filled with worry, and a quiet desperation that lingers in every empty chair at the family table. Fathers can't reach jobs that support their families, grandparents can only wave to grandchildren through a fence, unable to share a simple hug or a smile in person. These tragedies unfold far from the halls of power, in the quiet corners of ordinary lives. Stories that rarely make headlines but shape the fabric of entire communities. The policy meant to protect has instead inflicted deep, invisible wounds, scars that may last for generations, long after the border reopens. The border closure has upended lives, separating families, shattering dreams, and leaving countless people in limbo, unsure when or if they'll be reunited. It's a stark reminder, real people pay the price for political decisions, and the cost is measured in broken families and lost opportunities. The suffering is immense and often unseen, hidden behind closed doors and silent tears, a testament to the resilience and pain of those living at the edge of an invisible line. The economic shock of the border closure was immediate and severe. Supply chains broke down, trucks with produce and parts sat idle, grocery shelves emptied, prices soared, and low-income families suffered most. Small businesses in border towns lost half their customers overnight. A family restaurant in Laredo, Texas faced layoffs and possible closure, just one of many. The pain spread nationwide. Auto plants slowed, workers were laid off, and farmers couldn't harvest crops. The closure exposed how interconnected the North American economy truly is. Beyond lost profits, it sent a chilling message to global investors. America was becoming unpredictable. Companies reconsidered investing or expanding in the U.S. The long-term damage to America's reputation as an open market could be immense. The closure, meant to protect, inflicted a deep wound on economic prosperity. It undermined the very strength it sought to preserve. The border closure ignited fierce debate, splitting the nation. Supporters saw it as necessary for security and sovereignty, citing overwhelmed services and the need for order. They argued it was about fairness and protecting citizens. For them, the closure was tough, but essential. Opponents called it a moral and economic disaster, a betrayal of America's immigrant legacy. They pointed to the Statue of Liberty and the suffering caused by separation and lost opportunity. They argued true strength is found in compassion and openness. The debate was about more than policy. It was about America's character. Should the nation be a fortress or a haven? The country remains deeply divided. In his interview, Musk highlighted a crucial point. Immigration fuels America's innovation. He argued that closing the border threatens the nation's economic future. America's strength lies in attracting talent from around the world. Immigrants start businesses at higher rates, driving growth and creating jobs. Think of Google, Intel, Yahoo, founded by immigrants or their children. Musk warned that hostility to immigrants leads to brain drain and lost opportunity. America's edge depends on remaining a magnet for global talent. Immigrants also fill essential jobs. Farm workers, builders, healthcare aides. A closed border means labor shortages, higher prices, and slower growth. Musk called for a pragmatic approach that values immigrants' contributions at every level. For him, America is an idea, open to all who dream and build. Closing the border, he said, is self-sabotage. Immigration is not a problem, but a strength to be celebrated. The border closure is part of a larger trend rising American isolationism. Once outward-looking, the U.S. is turning inward, skeptical of global engagement. Calls for protectionism and stricter immigration reflect a Fortress America mindset. Proponents argue for putting American interests first, but isolation comes with risks. In a connected world, no nation thrives alone. Pulling back creates a vacuum for rival powers and weakens America's influence. Global challenges, climate change, pandemics, ignore borders. Isolation may feel safe, but it can make us more vulnerable. The border closure is a potent symbol of this shift. It signals a nation locking its doors, facing challenges alone. History shows when nations turn inward, the world often turns away. America must decide if it leads by power or by ideals. The closed border forces us to ask, what does it mean to be American? For generations, it meant liberty, opportunity, and welcoming newcomers. The closure challenges that vision. Is being American about birthplace or about shared ideals, democracy, freedom, and unity in diversity? The debate is about who we are, an exclusive club, or an expanding circle. For Maria, David, and Musk, being American is about caring for family, building a future, and dreaming big. The closure pits America's promise against its reality. Our choice now will define the nation's character for decades. What it means to be American is being rewritten, and we all have a stake. The situation is bleak. Borders closed, families separated, debate raging. But despair isn't an option. The answer isn't total openness or total closure, but a balanced, humane solution. America can be both secure and compassionate. Reform means investing in a modern immigration system, with fair, efficient processing and clear legal pathways. Addressing root causes of migration requires working with neighbors and listening to all concerns. We must lower the temperature and talk as fellow citizens. Musk's tears remind us this issue touches our identity and empathy. America has faced division before and emerged stronger. This crisis is a chance to reaffirm that our strength comes from hope, not fear. The road ahead is long, but together we can keep the dream alive.